This is the audio for Chapter 14, Lesson 1, The Sky from Earth, page 508, Watching the Stars. When you look up at the night sky, what questions do you ask yourself? Do you wonder why the stars seem to move or why the night moon shines? Aryabhata was an early Indian astronomer who thought about these questions. He was born in India in AD 476. Many historians think that Aryabhata realized that the stars appear to move from east to west because Earth rotates from west to east. He also wrote that the moon and the planets shine because they reflect light from the sun. And he made all of these inferences using just his eyes and his mind. The first telescopes wouldn't come along for more than 1,000 years. I wonder if he predicted right. Page 509. What can you see in the night sky? Depending on how dark the sky is where you are, you might see 2,000 or 3,000 stars using just your eyes. On a clear night, you may see stars, the moon, planets, meteors, and comets. So each one breaks it down. The moon, about half of every month, Earth's moon outshines everything else in the night sky. The moon is Earth's only natural satellite. So a satellite is a body that orbits a planet. So the moon goes around the Earth. Planets, you may see objects that move from night to night against the background stars. These are planets. So a planet is an object that orbits the sun. It's large enough to have become rounded by its own gravity and has cleared the area of its orbit. There are 8 planets in the solar system. 5 are visible from Earth without a telescope, which is Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Meteors and comets. Have you ever seen a shooting star? These sudden bright streaks are called meteors. A meteor is a streak of light produced when a small object burns up, entering Earth's atmosphere. You can see a meteor on almost any night. Comets are rare. A comet is a cold mixture of dust and ice that gives off a long trail of light as it approaches the sun. Remember, the yellow highlighted words are key vocab words that will probably be on the quiz. So if you need to reference them back, this is page 509. Stars appear as tiny points of light. However, scientists infer that a star is a giant ball of hot gas, mainly composed of hydrogen and helium. As seen from Earth, the positions of the stars relative to each other do not seem to change. 510. Constellations. For thousands of years, humans have been seeing patterns in groups of stars and given names to them. So a constellation is a pattern or group of stars that people imagine to represent a figure, animal, or an object. So there are some on this picture and some on 511 if you want to take some time and look at those. Astronomers also use the word constellation for an area of the sky and all the objects in that area. Different cultures have identified different constellations. In Western culture, there are 88 constellations. Most constellation names used today come from the ancient Greeks, who probably took them from the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians. I highly suggest going to the Science Center this summer. They have a wonderful exhibit on the stars and the planets and constellations. Some constellations' names come from Latin. The constellation Leo, for example, came from the Latin word meaning lion. Some constellations are named for people or animals in Greek myths, and you may have read about some of these myths in school. Do you know the name Pegasus? Do those sound familiar? They are mythological characters and also constellations. So, I'm sorry, Pegasus and Perseus. Did I say that right? All right. Page 511, that's the other half of the constellation. Finding constellations, a chart like the one shown in figure 2 can help you find the constellations in the night sky. The only one I can ever see is the Big Dipper. Read the instructions for how to use the chart. It may seem a little strange at first. With some practice, it'll be easy. Here's one tip to help you. You probably recognize the Big Dipper. The group of stars is actually not a constellation itself. It's part of the constellation Ursa Major, or the Great Bear. The 2 stars at the end of the Dipper's bowl are called the pointers. So picture an imaginary line between those two stars. If you can continue it away from the bowl, the first fairly bright star you'll reach is called Polaris. It's commonly called the North Star. It's located close to the sky's North Pole. You can find star charts in the appendix. Take one outside on a clear night and see what you can find. So there's a couple of these down in the Apply It diagram. Page 512. How do objects in the sky appear to move? So I know we've seen clouds move. We're talking about stars and planets and other objects currently, so they appear to move over time. They do not move in space, but those actual motions and their apparent or visible motions may be very different. So apparent motion of an object is in the sky depends on the motion of the Earth. So star motions, stars generally appear to move from east to west through the night, as Aryabhata thought his apparent motion is actually caused by Earth turning from west to east. The sun's apparent motion during the day is also called Earth's motion. So there's that figure down there on the bottom to show you that. Seasonal changes, constellations, and star patterns remain the same year after year, but which ones you can see varies from season to season. For example, you can find Orion in the eastern sky on winter evenings, but by spring you'll see Orion in the west, disappearing below the horizon shortly after sunset. These seasonal changes are called by Earth's orbit around the sun. So each night the position of most stars shifts slightly to the west. Soon you will no longer see stars once visible in the west, and other stars appear in the east. There's a few constellations that you can see year-round. These are the ones closest to the North Star. As Earth rotates, these constellations never appear to rise or set. So depending where they are in our rotation. You can read up here about tracking figures or tracking the planets in figure 4. This is the end on page 513. So planets. Planets appear to move against the background of stars, as shown in figure 4. Because the planets all orbit the sun in about the same plane, they appear to move through the narrow band in the sky. The band is called the zodiac, so that's a picture of the band up there. It includes constellations such as Taurus, Leo, and Virgo. Some planets, when they are visible, can be seen all night long. Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are all farther from the sun than Earth is. Sometimes Earth passes between them and the sun. And when this occurs, the planets are visible after sunset, once the sun's bright light is no longer blocks the view. You can see Venus and Mercury only in the evening or morning. They are closer to the sun and Earth, so they always appear close to the sun. Venus is the brightest object in the night sky other than the moon, and Mercury appears low in the sky and is visible for a limited time around sunrise and sunset. So if you get a chance, go camping this summer, check out the stars, or just check out your window or go outside late one night.